Welcome to High Drama. The hunt is on for good plays, and we certainly found it in David Farr's The Hunt at St. Anne's Warehouse, which is an adaptation of Thomas Vinterberg and Tobias Lindholm's 2012 Academy Award-nominated film Yagten. It's directed by Rupert Gould for the Oneida Theater Company. Hilda asked Lucas, his well-liked and helpful teacher, to stay behind for two children, Peter and Clara, whose parents are late picking them up. Peter's dad, Gunnar, arrives, who is the loud, burly, opinionated type. Clara, left alone with Lucas, tries to give him a heart-shaped lollipop, which he gently refuses, and it is very inappropriate. Her mom, Clara's mom, Michaela, finally arrives, loudly complaining about Theo, her husband, always drinking, their marriage, and wondering how Lucas is getting on teaching 5-year-olds after being a secondary teacher. Clara is a very intense little kid, and she is hurt that Lucas refused her present. She makes a false accusation against Lucas, which derails his whole life. Lucas is having enough trouble getting his ex-wife to let him see his teenage son Marcus, and these accusations don't help any. This takes place in a close-knit village where all the men belong to the same hunting lodge. When good people believe lies, it gives them the go-ahead to behave reprehensibly to someone who they have known and trusted for years. It doesn't help that Lucas is so low-keyed while everyone else is so emotional around him. This is staged very spine-tingingly on S. Devlin's glass-enclosed cramped space where testosterone runs over. How will Lucas escape this nightmare? Who ends up collateral damage to a town gone amok? Can trust be repaired once broken? The acting was superb, even the little kids. This was so breathlessly done that emotions ran rampant just watching it. The ending will make you ponder. Happy face. Days of Wine and Roses is adapted from the 1962 film and original 1958 teleplay with a new book by Craig Lucas and music and lyrics by Adam Guttell. It's a tragic tale of married alcoholics trying to kick the habit to save their job and family. Joe Clay is a successful PR guy in New York City in 1950 when he meets the secretary of his boss, Kirsten Arneson, and starts to woo her. He tries to ply her with alcohol, but she prefers chocolate, so he gets her with a brandy Alexander that sets her off on her road to ruin. Will they succeed? Or is the disease of alcoholism too strong to conquer? Adam Guttell has written some soaring music that is perfect for the clarion voice of Kelly O'Hara and the rich voice of Brian Darcy James. This is a very problematic musical due to its dark subject matter, and I remember the movie is so disturbing that I dreaded seeing this. I was right. It's depressing and unfair. Plus, I kept thinking there was a scene in it that wasn't in it, and it didn't happen. So anyway, but Adam Guttell is a talented composer, but this score didn't grab me like his Light in the Piazza did. I didn't feel any emotions that I should have felt. I just appreciated the beautiful singing. Mixed face.
Days of Wine and Roses was not a film or story I was familiar with prior to seeing it. That being said, it is not a show that I found to be a happy escape while in the theater. It was very flat. It didn't keep my attention all that much. There were no memorable musical numbers. Of course, the leads, Brian Darcy James and Kelly O'Hara, are treats in anything that you get to see them in and certainly carry this show with their performances. But I couldn't tell you what they were singing about or leave the theater humming any tune to myself. It's really just a depressing story. The show ends and there's no sense of a resolution. And it seems like Eva and I were kind of echoing each other's opinions as we left. I think really it's kind of riding, and I don't mean to be harsh, of course, when I say this, but I think it's riding off of its name recognition from having a following of the film. But it's not a show that I think young audiences like myself are going to line up for.
The thing is, because the film, if people who do know the film, they're not wanting to go to see this musical because they know the story and they're going to like, why am I going to see a musical about this horrible movie that depressed the heck out of me?
There's not necessarily themes that resonated with me personally. Perhaps addiction, because we're all addicted to our devices, of course, and it's easy to see those parallels. And you see ebbs and flows in conflict and relationships, but it just wasn't a show for me, so I'm giving it a sad face.
At Theater for the New City is Barbara Kahn's latest wonderful play, Fair Winds of War, which looks at the world in 1939 in New York City. The World's Fair is about to open. Hitler is coming to power, and the American Bund is holding rallies at Madison Square Garden to make America great again with the help of the Nazis. Malka, who just fled Poland and her family to stay with relatives in Greenwich Village, is feeling isolated and lonely for her family and terrified that the Nazis will get her in America too. Her cousin Becky pooh-poos her and is very dismissive of her cousin and her fears. Malka is especially worried for her brother Yakov, who she is very close to. Malka flees to the park and is feeling very sorry for herself when the kindly Bernice, a Negro, I'm using the terminology of the times, befriends her and invites her to see her singing at the studio. Things look up for Malka when she runs into her old friend Tamara. Jack breaks the fourth wall to greet us and set up the play and explain between scenes and epilogues all the blanks to be filled in. This way we get a complete picture of the whole play. I like that. I'm one of those people who likes to have everything tied up neatly at the end. Barbara Kahn is an exceptional playwright in how she brings history to life. She always includes the symbiotic relationship to being outcasts of society for the Jews, African Americans, and the LGBTQ plus people. She has such a vivid imagination that it all seems like it is really happening in real life. The history is true, but the characters are well-researched composites. This was so well cast. Stalina Huberchenko's Malka is a Ukrainian actor, so this hits close to home for her and the passion comes through. Rebecca D. Wilson as the kindly Bernice has a powerhouse voice and such a warm presence that I wanted to be her BFF too. Jamie Coffey's Becky was so mean. She treated Malka abominably, and you wanted to scream at her to be nicer and believe Malka when she tells you how bad things are. To her credit, we find out later she has her reasons. Jenny Lavar's Tamara shows how an immigrant becomes a gung-ho Yankee and helps Malka to become a real American too. And Rob Masonon is a most welcoming host. And rounding out the cast is Danny Epstein, who illustrates a different kind of conflict going on. The play is so relevant as we are going through a similar time in history with dictators and despots trying to destroy the fabric of common decency. Anti-Semitism, Black Lives Matter, and gay bashing is still going on. But with Fair Winds of War, we can see how people can still try and be fair even in the times of war. Happy face.
Okay, if you are somebody who likes tasty food, high tea, historical events, and solving mysteries and puzzles, there's something playing at Caveat Theater on the Lower East Side that you must see. Patchwork Adventures is presenting this wildly inventive piece called Order of the Golden Scribe Initiation Tea. And it is truly unlike any theater piece I've ever seen. Basically, the premise is that you go into this very elegantly appointed space where everybody is sitting at tables that have linen and fine china, and there's a printed menu with 4 courses. And the premise is that you have been invited because you are an initiate of the Golden Order. And in order to get the courses, you have to solve 4 different puzzles, and each one comes linearly. So it's not like you solve them all at once and get the whole meal. First you get the tea, then you get the appetizers, then the entrees, then the dessert, blah,
and
blah.
we had 4 people at our table.
Yes.
2 people we didn't know. But as luck would have it, the guy next to me, he loves puzzles as much as I do. So it's like at one point, one of the things we had to unravel was an actual puzzle with cardboard puzzle piece. I was like, and I immediately attacked it. I mean, that one I wouldn't let anyone else help me with. I was like, yay! So, but yeah, there's 4 different puzzles, and everyone else was doing well with their puzzles, and we were kind of slow.
As I said, the premise is that you're there to be initiated into the order, but what starts creeping in is that there's actually a rebellion going on, a la Star Wars. It's very Scientology-esque, because this is obviously a brainwashed cult, and you're being asked to help put the kibosh on it. And while you're doing it, you get lovely teas and food.
But you never know. The trouble is you have no idea what's going to go on. You can see this over and over and over again because you never know how it's going to play out. So it It was so much fun, and the food was really yummy, and I love puzzles. So this was just and tea. Oh my God, so much tea, fancy tea, tea. Oh, the way they presented everything was just gorgeous.
The reality is that it's hard to talk about this more thoroughly without giving even more away. But
Than we
trust
already
me,
have.
than we already have. But trust me when I say it is truly one of the most original performance pieces I have ever seen. The setting is sublime. The performers are believable. The puzzles are challenging. The plot twists are stimulating. The absolute last thing you're expected to do is just sit there and watch. You can't. I give it a happy face plus.
Oh, I do too. Major happy face plus.
You don't have much longer to see it. It only plays Saturdays and Sundays through the end of March. But if you like something out of the ordinary, this is definitely for you.
Yeah, my stomach's growling at the thought of it. James Lapine and Sondheim's Sunday in the Park with George is a fictionalized look at the painter of pointillism, George Seurat, and his seminal work, A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of Le Grand Jatte. The figures of the painting come to life as we get backstories of them and their relationship with George and each other. The downfall of dedication to art is how relationships suffer. Either create a masterpiece or go to the follies. One needs complete concentration. How you have to finish the hat. You watch the rest of the world through a window while you finish a hat. In the modern second half, we have a descendant of Seurat trying to use color and light to create chromolooms, but it is time for a fresh start, as how many of the same thing can you do? It's important to keep moving on and changing. This is one of the most remarkable visions of Sunday, and it is like the director-choreographer Eamon Foley took the show to heart as he painted it with a fresh new look. He added these extraordinary dancers from the Axelrod Contemporary Ballet Theater Company. Wearing different colored leotards of the primary colors, they danced the brushstrokes, more red, more blue, yellow and white, just blue and yellow and white. That's done with green, conjoined with orange. Orange, pick up blue, pick up orange from blue-green circle on the violet diagonal. Mr. Foley also used shadows to create images. The cast was wonderful in their double roles. Both Graham Phillips George and Talia Suskauer's Dot Marie had powerful voices and wonderful breath control and really captured the emotions as they tried to navigate their love for each other with what they needed from life. He needed to paint and she needed to matter. This has always been my favorite Sondheim musical. It really is rapturous how artists can capture us. This is so worth the trip to Deal, New Jersey to see this groundbreaking production. It's a pity Sondheim isn't around to enjoy this. Major happy face. Lindsay Hope Perlman's Sign of the Times, based on an original story by Richard J. Robbins, is a jukebox musical using 60s song. Cindy leaves behind her small town, her sweetheart since third grade Matt, and old-fashioned ideas to be a photographer in New York City in the swinging 60s. On the bus from Ohio to New York City, Cindy meets Cody Jackson, President Emeritus of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, University of Buffalo chapter. Yeah. They part ways as Cindy tries to find a place to live and ends up with African-American Tanya, who wants to be a singer. Cindy is trying to get a job at an advertising agency that is very Mad Men and The Apartment with men chasing secretaries. She meets the boss, Brian Paulson, in a meet-cute way and gets the job, and Tanya meets Cody from Buffalo. There are twists and turns in the relationship mixed in with the civil rights movement, plus Matt gets drafted to Vietnam, so you have all that turmoil. The acting and singing was marvelous. The way they shoehorned in the songs was sometimes hilarious, as it was so manipulated. Being a Monkees fan, when Matt is calling from Clarksville to tell you about being drafted, you know what song is coming up next. Will Matt come back alive? And will Cindy come back to Matt and Ohio? Will Tanya become a big singer? Will Cody be able to make a difference in civil rights? How long must women put up with chauvinistic assholes? This was just a lot of fun, despite being so contrived to get all the 60s political highlights in. I realize why jukebox musicals are so popular. Instead of going home humming the score, you can sing along during the show. I was very Tickle, they had Eve of Destruction, as at one point my nickname was Eva Destruction. I know a place that you can go, Sign of the Times.
I was very impressed by the high production value of this show. The set design was really impressive. It really celebrated the New York City streetscape. The choreography was beautiful. There was quite a large ensemble that was made present throughout the entire show, and their performances really helped elevate each scene. As Eva said, it follows Cindy, who is on her journey of self-discovery and independence throughout the 60s. So you can't help but root for her throughout the entire show. I found much of the score to be fun, including familiar tunes like Rescue Me, You Don't Own Me, Downtown, These Boots Are Made for Walking. I'm, surprised not a product of the 60s. So it was fun to, revisit these songs from a different perspective. The costumes, of course, helped bring to life the 60s. And it felt very similar to shows that I've seen that also try to celebrate New York and also highlight music from that time period. So whether that's Beautiful, the Carole King musical, or New York, New York, those are familiar shows that were in the back of my mind throughout this one. But this was a happy face for me.
Yeah, so it's good for millennials and okay boomers. So happy face for me too. At 59 East 59th Street is Lisi DeHaas's The Slow Dance, about letting go of the past and looking to the future and allowing yourself to change. The mother is ready to sell her home and figure out what to do with all the accumulated stuff. Half of her wants to just chuck it all, and the other half isn't sure what she wants to do. Her son is trying to help his mother come to terms with moving, but he has his own conflicts. Mother keeps trying to remember this book she read to him as a child after Dad left that he loved so much. It had bears, blueberries, and the main character was Sal. She wants her son to find it, but he just wants to pack everything away and be done with it. The son also has the stress of planning a wedding with his very controlling fiance. She doesn't listen to anything he wants and has him wrapped around her little finger. It causes him to hallucinate a bear. I wasn't sure if the bear was his manifestation of his mom or dad or something else. The fiance convinces mom and son to hire a professional declutterer who happens to look like the little girl in Blueberries for Sal, the book that the mom was trying to remember. Sal and the mom have nice bonding moments. Will everyone come to terms with each other's relationships and what is important in the end? The cast was very good. And the best thing was Yi Husan's Aunt Ma's cardboard set. But, it was, so I'm giving it a mixed face.
At Signature Theater, the new group is presenting The 7-Year Disappear, written by Jordan Seavey and directed by Scott Elliott. Cynthia Nixon is Miriam, a performance artist whose work often includes intimate details of her life and at times places her son and herself in dangerous situations. From his birth onward, Miriam has included her son Naphtali in her pieces. She is a monster of narcissism and egotism who seems to have no conception at all of how to nurture a child. As an adult, Naphtali is his mom's manager. After the announcement that MoMA is offering her a big show, Miriam disappears for 7 years. Neither Naphtali nor anyone close to Miriam have a clue to where she went. Miriam has told Naphtali almost nothing about his father, except that he was a fascinating man and the reason she converted to Judaism. One of the boy's childhood memories is being separated from his mom and lost to the Bronx Zoo when he was 4. He becomes a deeply troubled young man with issues of substance abuse. Nude photos projected of him and his mom make their relationship seem incestuous. Although Cynthia Nixon does a fine job of representing the other characters that Naphtali encounters, it's often confusing who those people are. I was impressed by the production elements of severe black uniform-like costumes, spiffy projections, sound, and lighting, but I rarely felt especially interested in the play or emotionally moved by it. This is basically a difficult and disturbing play that I find hard to recommend. Mixed faces.
We recently saw American Rot at La Mama, which is written by Kate Tanny Billingsley. It's about the ruling, Dred Scott decision, the ruling by the Supreme Court Chief Justice Taney, who decided to declare that enslaved people were not citizens of the United States and therefore could not expect any protection from the federal government or the courts. The opinion also stated that Congress had no authority to ban slavery from a federal territory. So this play is directed by Estelle Parson in a kind of a very wonderful way. They're like Black actors are sitting on one side and Taney family is sitting on the other side. And there's a confrontation taking place in a diner with the Walter Scott, who's the descendant of Dred Scott, and the descendant Jim Taney, who's the descendant of the Taney. And it is, he has called him so he can apologize for this atrocity which almost led to the Civil War. And Walter Scott is very ferocious and he says, this will not absolve the crimes were committed after this decision for decades and decades. And it ruined the intergenerational, it caused a lot of trauma and all that stuff. And finally, when we had the talk back, I realized the play was written by one of the Taney family women. And her father, real father, was sitting there too. And
Yeah, I thought this play was amazing. I just thought, obviously, I'm American, so I grew up with this history. I remember you learn about Plessy versus Ferguson and the Dred Scott case, and anyway, you learn all this stuff in school. And they also had Dred Scott there too. Not just Justice Taney. Both the historical figures were there leading the Black chorus and the white chorus. And in the Black chorus was my friend Rasharda Abrams, who's been on our show. I didn't realize she was in it. It just brought up a lot of questions about racism, obviously, and today. And it was very, very cleverly done. And there was music in it too. And it really was beautifully titled American Rot, because really it is a rot to America, what happened and what's still happening. So it's just a incredible play, and I think everyone should go see it because it's more than educational. It's just brilliant. So I'm giving it a happy face.
I gave happy face. Yeah.
That fun-loving company, Fiasco Theater, has now tackled Shakespeare's Pericles, directed by Ben Steinfeld. This play is hard to describe because it's just so much fun. Basically, Pericles goes on many ship adventures and has lots of shipwrecks. So he goes to this place to woo someone, and he gets the 3 questions that you get like in Merchant of Venice. And he discovers the truth that the king is having incest with his daughter. The king is upset that the guy found out, so he wants to kill Pericles. Pericles has to go to another country to escape the king, and then he goes somewhere else, and then he meets someone, and then he goes somewhere else, and then they get separated, and everyone gets kidnapped. But he plagiarizes himself. It's got Winter's Tale in it, and Merchant of Venice, and The Tempest, but it's so much fun. And for some reason, they have 4 Pericles playing the part, when I'm used to one sexy guy playing the part ending up in a loincloth. So that's the only part I missed in this.
Four actors playing the Pericles was a difficult thing for me because at times I did not understand which one of them is the Pericles and what's going on, But having said that, it was still fun. It was still fun. But the company is like so much in love with Shakespeare or so much in love with themselves, breaking the fourth wall, talking to us, looking at us, all that stuff. And the brothel also came in, but I'm not going to tell you what happened after that.
Yeah, like Bina said at one point, he said the word sloth. It made me laugh. It was dead silence. I laughed. The entire audience laughed, and he played along with that. But I'm giving this a major happy face because I just love Fiasco, and even though there wasn't a sexy guy in a loincloth.
And I give a happy face.
Itamar Moses, the ally, really delves into the psyche of being Jewish in today's time. Asaf and his wife Gwen have moved to a university town for work. Baron Prince, who is Black, a former promising pupil of Asaf, approaches Asaf after Baron's cousin was brutally killed by a cop. Baron wants Asaf to sign a petition, which coincidentally was put together by Asaf's former girlfriend, Nakaya, who is also Black. Asaf, who is Jewish, agrees to most of it, but not the part that bothers him, which is attacking Israel as an apartheid and oppression of Palestinians and not recognizing them as a state, and with American aid of Israel causing genocide against the Palestinian. Why is Israel the only country singled out? What about Turkey and the Kurds? Asaf caves as he is worried about perception if he doesn't sign, and he figures it won't get noticed, but it does by various factions. A pro-Palestinian Jew with her Muslim boyfriend for him to sponsor a Mideast expert with questionable loyalties, and a fervent Jew is against this lecture, and it is Arab versus Jew that is causing all the problems, not Palestinians. Asaf, who was never really very Jewish, now finds himself torn in several directions and doesn't know what to think anymore. Will he finally take a stand and stand up to all the people pulling at him to come to his own conclusion? And what will that finally be? And it's remarkable that this was written before October. Itamar Moses, the ally, really clarifies what I've been grappling with for a few years now. And this is one of the most important plays ever written. And I really had a time writing this because it hit so close to home, because really there is just nowhere safe for a Jew to be. I'm giving this such a happy face, and please, you must see this. Our next show will be April 6th. In the meantime, closing on March 31st is Lawrence Fishburne, like they do in the movies at the Perelman Performing Arts Center, White Rose, All the Devils with Patrick Page. And Maestro's Music's Amplify will be at Sony Hall March 25th at 8 o'clock. And Merrily We Roll Along People will be at the 92 NY March 28th at 3 p.m. And March 29th at 7 p.m. Richard Script will be at the Laurie Beachman. March 30th at 3 p.m. is Coffee House Chronicles with Lola Pashalinski. And starting April 5th at La Mama, Theodore Skipateris' The Four Lives. You've got Dead Law at Audible closing April 7th. And The Fringe is back from April 3rd to the 21st at various venues. See you April 6th, and happy Purim tonight.